Winter in the northern provinces begins with a sound, not the howl of wind or the crack of ice, but something softer, the slow sigh of ash shifting under a wooden door. It gathers along thresholds like pale snow that remembers fire. The villagers step over it without thought, brushing it from their sleeves, their sandals, their breath. But the ash house, the winter store at the edge of every Edo village, breathes differently. Its air is warm, heavy, and strangely alive. When a woman opens its door at dawn, dust rises around her in a shimmering cloud, tiny motes carried upward on trapped heat. Outside, frost clings to rooftops. Inside, ash drifts like quiet smoke. She inhales. The air smells of burnt pine, dried roots, fermentation, old earth. Her hands disappear into her sleeves, already coated with a thin gray. This house of ash is not a dwelling. It is a womb for winter, and the women who tend it are the unsung architects of survival. They work in hours others avoid, in a room without windows, barefoot on warm dust, bending over beds of gray that cling to their skin like memory. Their rituals are not written in scrolls or poems. They live in muscle, breath, and repetition. Haldaim, the one who tends the ember, is named Nao. Before the village sleeps, she kneels before a wooden chest set into the floor, a lidded box filled with slowly smoldering coals. The villagers call it Nemribi, the sleeping fire. It is the thread that ties one night to the next. Let it die, and the village would spend hours, sometimes days, coaxing new fire from stubborn wood by friction alone. Nao's job is simple, only in words. Keep the ember breathing. Each night she places thin shavings of pine atop the dull red glow, covering it lightly with ash to slow the burn. Ash cools quickly on the surface, but underneath, heat coils like a heartbeat. The ember will smolder for hours, warm enough to survive, cool enough not to spread. Nao sits beside the chest, a blanket around her shoulders. Her hair smells faintly of smoke. Her fingers are permanently stained, gray in the creases. Even in daylight, she looks like someone sculpted from soot. But night is when her craft reveals itself. Winter storms rattle the shutters. Wind snakes through gaps in the walls. Snow piles against the door so heavily she sometimes must push to escape. And through it all, the ember must not die. She leans close, listening to the faint crackle beneath the ash. Some nights, it shrinks to a single pinprick of light that threatens to vanish. She breathes gently toward it, shielding it with her hands, coaxing it like a child reluctant to wake. When it brightens, she whispers, "You're still here." By morning, she has kept the village alive, without anyone knowing her name. Now, not far from the ember chest, another woman begins her winter below the elbow, hands buried in warm gray. Her name is Miyo, and she tends the root bed's long troughs carved into the floorboards and filled knee-deep with sifted ash. In summer, the daikon and sweet potatoes grow fat. In autumn, they are harvested. In winter, they sleep in Miyo's silent library. She sifts the ash until it is as fine as rice flour. The dust rises like pale breath with each shake of her sieve. She inspects every root carefully, pressing gently with her thumb to find invisible bruises. Those she rejects. A single spoiled vegetable could ruin the entire bed. Then she buries them. One layer of roots, one layer of ash, one layer of breath. It is slow work. It stains her eyelashes. It dries her skin. It creeps into the folds of her robe and rubs her arms raw. But when the cold bites deepest, these ash-sleeping vegetables will emerge just as crisp and sweet as the day they were buried. Villagers taste the miracle in February. They never imagine the girl coughing softly into her sleeve, covered in gray, by December. To Miyo, the ash house is a vault of stories, each root a chapter, each winter a new volume. 1. While Miyo buries food, another woman stands over a steaming wooden basin, sleeves rolled past her elbows. Her name is Risa, and she has learned the strange alchemy of ash and water. Together, they form lye, harsh, gritty, stinging the skin yet capable of cleansing what nothing else can. Clay jars coated in mold, wooden ladles stained dark, winter coats stiff from sweat, fire-blackened pots that no man can scrub clean. The steam rises around her face like a thin veil. Her arms ache from scrubbing, her knuckles split and heal and split again. But she continues, breath steady, rhythm unwavering, scrape, rinse, slosh, drip. Risa respects the contradiction she works with. Ash dirties the air but purifies the water. What stains her hands cleans the world around her. Sometimes she glimpses her reflection in a freshly washed pot, blurred by steam, softened by the sheen of lye. She wonders, silently, if she too could be made new by the very substance that marks her every day. But she never speaks of this. Her thoughts remain between her and the ash. It is from mooring. In the corner of the ash house, a woman whose pain has found no language moves gracefully through the chores others hesitate to claim. The villagers call her the Dust Widow. Her husband died in an early winter storm, buried under snow before anyone realized he had not returned. Since then, she has lived half invisible, wrapped in layers that hide her shape, speaking only when necessary. But inside the ash house, she sheds her outer robe. Ash settles on her hair. Ash clings to her skin. Ash blooms on her breath. She scrapes soot from hearthstones until her shoulders tremble. She carries baskets heavy enough to bruise her palms. She sweeps piles of ash that puff into the air like strange gray snowfall. In the drifting clouds of dust, she finds something resembling peace, or at least an echo of the man she lost. Ash covers everything. It erases color. It quiets the world. In its muted haze, her grief becomes bearable. Sometimes she pauses, watching the dust spiral through warm air, and imagines it transforming into the snow that once covered her husband's final resting place. But she does not cry. Tears would only make mud. So she inhales, coughs, wipes her sleeve across her face, and returns to work. The ash house does not ask her to smile or speak. It simply lets her exist. Any five. At the center of the ash house, where the smoldering air gathers into a gentle warmth, stands the oldest of them, Otae. She has tended this chamber for more than 30 winters. The gray on her robe is older than some of the village's children. Every woman here learned from her hands. Every winter meal owes her its existence. Every ember owes her its morning glow. On the night of the first snowfall, she performs the ritual known as opening the winter mouth. The women gather around the central hearth, a wide depression filled with warm ash from the previous year. Otae dips her fingers into the bed, letting heat rise into her palms. Then she murmurs a blessing. For what was burned, we give thanks. For what remains, we give purpose. The women follow her gesture, pressing ash to their sleeves, their foreheads, their tools. It is not religion. It is not superstition. It is inheritance. Otae's knees ache. Her breath shortens each winter. But when she enters the ash house at dawn, the warmth greets her like an old companion. The dust drifts around her in soft spirals, settling in her hair as though crowning her with winter itself. She sweeps last each night, tracing slow arcs that send a snowstorm of ash swirling through the air. For a moment, the room glows in the shimmer. In those seconds, she sees beauty no outsider ever witnesses. Ash is what remains after fire. She is what remains after decades. Both still carry heat. Isenested, by late winter, the ash house glows with a steady, living warmth even when snow outside climbs halfway up the walls. The women move through its haze like silhouettes sculpted from dust. Their feet leave soft gray prints across the floor. Their laughter, when it appears, is hushed not because they are afraid, but because the room itself feels ancient. The villagers come for preserved food, warm embers, spotless pots. They bow politely, thank the season, and return home. Few imagine the women who spent hours coughing into their sleeves so that their children would not starve. The ash house has no altar, no prayers, no offerings, no festival to honor the hands that keep it alive. And yet, it performs a quiet miracle every year. It turns the waste of fire into the substance of survival. When spring finally softens the ground, the women begin closing the house. Miyo lifts the last daikon from its ash bed. Risa empties the final basin of lye water. The Dust Widow sweeps the soot one last time. Now lets the final ember die, whispering goodbye like closing a child's eyes. Then Otae opens the door wide. Sunlight floods the room. Dust surges upward in a golden wave. For a breath, the ash house glitters, every particle catching light, every mote suspended like a tiny star. The women stand in the doorway, watching the air brighten, their faces calm. It is only a moment. Then the dust settles. The warmth fades. Life resumes its ordinary shape, but the women remember. And when winter returns, they will too, barefoot, soot-stained, steady to the quiet gray room that keeps a village alive. The world outside rarely notices, but the ash does. The ash always remembers.